met my abuser on an online dating site. It was about 6 months before I started seeing some of the small warning signs of domestic abuse.
By the time they fully manifested, I was comfortable with him, lived with him, and loved him. What started as irritations, making decisions for both of us, deciding all our plans, quickly escalated to gaslighting behavior.
One night, he started a huge fight after I returned from dinner with a girlfriend. He accused me of speaking badly of him and the house we had bought together. I had given my girlfriend a tour before we left for dinner.
He told me I had made her visibly uncomfortable with my insecure behavior and had offended and demeaned him, and then just left the house. In reality, I had actually given my friend the house tour, gushed over how much I loved it, invited him to go with us, and then went to dinner when he opted out.
He twisted this seemingly innocent interaction, so I felt like I was at fault, leaving me feeling isolated from my friend and tearing me down.
Making it so I constantly questioned myself, my judgment, and my interactions.
This incident happened towards the last 6 months of the relationship when the gaslighting had already been going on for quite some time.
I believed his perspective was more than my own, and over time, this constant infusion of self-doubt tore me down more and more, leaving me to question all my moves.
Eventually, I completely relied on him to determine right and wrong. He was an alcoholic and a drug user and was frequently set off while he was under the influence.
He often had paranoid thoughts, accusing me of bugging the house and colluding with others to ruin his career. At first, my strategy was to argue and try to reason with him.
I would try anything to dissuade these thoughts, but the more I engaged, the longer he would argue, and the more aggressive he would get verbally.
There were several times when he would throw things, break down doors, and dump glasses of wine over my head.
We couldn't just have an argument where we would sleep it off in other rooms and talk again in the morning with clear heads. If I went to try to sleep, he would stand over me yelling, even when I would remove myself and sleep on the couch. Many times I ended up sleeping in my car, in the driveway, or down the street just to get away.
By the time this was happening, he had already isolated me from my friends and family, so I felt alone, like I had no one to go to. Constant sleep deprivation for months at a time is a slow and effective form of torture.
2 years into this relationship, a friend voiced her concern and told me I needed to consider leaving the relationship.
She told me that when I was ready, she had a spare room I could move into for as long as I needed. When I finally got up the nerve to leave, and this still took a long time, I got in my car and called her on the way.
She literally saved my life. Slowly, painfully, and with help from others, I have started to rebuild myself.
First, I had to rebuild my credibility at my job. My performance had been severely affected by chronic lack of sleep and lack of engagement.
But that was the easy part, pouring myself into my job. I also started counseling and eventually understood that I had stayed in the relationship initially because I was trying to help him.
I began to understand that we are all responsible for our own behaviors and no one can save anyone else.
My friends who I thought I had lost rallied around me. We shared many dinners, and they listened to my hours of crying phone calls.
I also reconnected with my family, who during the time of this relationship had stopped talking to me when I very actively and vocally told them I was choosing to stay with this known jerk.
I still have massive issues with trust. I have very effectively built a nice, cozy wall around myself when it comes to relationships.
It doesn't mean I don't try, but it takes a long time for me to let someone in romantically. I will always work on healing this part of myself.
There is a way out.
Join us in breaking the silence surrounding domestic violence.